Hello, everyone. I'm George McKibbens, and today I've got a lesson on the history of Black Friday. So I'm going to start the lesson with this fantastic painting, circa 2016, of a scene that many Americans will be familiar with, and that is Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. So in this painting, we see the outside of what looks like a shopping center, a couple running out with a TV, people trampling each other. We see tents on one side of the painting. Somebody has stayed overnight. And this is a nice snapshot of the holiday as Americans knew it in, say, the early 2000s to the mid 2010s. We don't see this level of madness as much as we once did. What we do see, or what a little too, if you're a little too young to remember headlines of Black Friday mobs, this is one from 2013. So you see people running in, going crazy, and then people fighting over TVs, people trampling each other, all that stuff. So what happened to the scenes that uh, many of many of us who have paid attention to this over the years are familiar with? What happened is all that mad rush, the insanity, the danger has moved behind closed doors, literally into warehouses. So if you or your friends work for, say, an Amazon warehouse, all that mad rush that has gone into the world of online shopping, the people moving packages here and there, delivery drivers getting those packages where they need to be. And especially as I record this in 2020, more people are shopping online as they should, but it doesn't mean that someone else isn't doing what I call the heavy lifting of Black Friday. So all those sales you see online, someone is working hard and very much likely risking their lives to get that package to that place on time. Where did this holiday come from? So the word Black Friday, there's a lot of rumors that circulate about where the origin of it came from. The truth of the matter is it comes from the city of Philadelphia. This is a picture of Harry Truman, former president, doing the coin toss at the Army-Navy football game. So big college football rivalry in Philadelphia drew big crowds the day after Thanksgiving. And by the 1950s and 1960s, local police, civil servants, bus drivers in particular, who would shuttle people to and from these games, would call this Black Friday because the streets of the city were so congested. People were drunk. People would often be fighting, and all these things we associate with the shopping madness would be happening in Philadelphia. And with that traffic, retailers began to find ways for people to do more than watch football. So it really wasn't until the 1980s and 90s that the Black Friday shopping happened. But the holiday of Thanksgiving and that retail, the relationship between shopping and Thanksgiving actually goes back a little bit more. Most Americans have a very elementary understanding of the holiday Thanksgiving. And the simplified version of the story is that Puritans in 1620 came to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and were aided by the Wampanoag Nation, who owned a large swath of territory of what would become Massachusetts Bay Colony. Now, the narrative is often that Puritans, the people who were arriving, were seeking religious freedom. A little misconception about the aims of the Puritans, who would be aided by the Wampanoags. Freedom is really a relative term. Puritans were a very, very fringe, radical sect of the Protestant Reformation. And they had a lot of political power, political influence in England. But by the 1600s, their influence was waning. Most Englishmen were moving away from Puritanism, and they thought the Church of England was too liberal. The society that was created throughout Massachusetts Bay Colony was actually a very rigid society. There were strict interpretations of the Bible. You had to go to church. And people who steered away from that very rigid faith of Puritanism would be punished. And these are images of how Puritans would punish people with what were called blue laws, this religious code of conduct. Remember, this is before the United States. There's no separation of church and state. This is on our left-hand side. You see people in stockades, with the execution of Quaker Mary Dyer, which happened in the Boston Common. All of these things were part of daily life. What we now recognize as, torture, humiliation, public executions. This was the way of the Puritans to enforce their religious codes of conduct. The reason I mention this is because most young people, when they learn about Thanksgiving, the narrative is that the Puritans were seeking religious freedom. So it depends on how you look at religious freedom, because remember, the Puritans were not in favor of a lot of personal freedoms, what we'd later associate with American culture that was inspired by the Enlightenment. Now, if we move on to how strict the Puritans were, they in fact banned Christmas. So what I have here are two primary source documents of Puritans in Massachusetts banning the celebration of Christmas. On our left-hand side, for preventing disorder, it's right here, 1659. The offense shall be a fine by 5 shillings. So what was their problem with Christmas? Well, Christmas was not mentioned in the Bible. It was originally a pagan holiday that made its way through the Christian religion in the early days. And the Puritans thought that this excess of pleasure, gluttony, drinking and dancing and gift giving was inappropriate. Given that being said, what we now know as Thanksgiving is a very gluttonous holiday, meaning we sit around, stuff our faces, watch football, and then spend our money going shopping the next day. It's safe to say that the Puritans would frown upon our rituals of Thanksgiving now. So how did this pleasure-seeking holiday come from these people who really wanted everyone to live a meager and modest and strict lifestyle? So the answer is the Civil War. Thanksgiving wouldn't become a federal holiday until 1863. So what I've got here is Lincoln's Thanksgiving Proclamation. 1863 was a year of death and tragedy in the United States. So this is the fall after the draft riots in New York City. This is the middle of the Civil War. We have a country completely divided over the issue of a slave-based economy and a wage-based economy. And you've got nothing but death. Several 100,000 Americans are dead at this point. And it doesn't look like this war has an end in sight. If you look at the language of Lincoln's Thanksgiving Proclamation, there's a lot of religion in this. It says, whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of the Almighty. And if you read the whole thing, he mentions God about 20 or 30 times. God, God, God. There's nothing in there about sitting there and having dinner with your family, and certainly nothing about shopping. So the point is, how our rituals of holiday in this country oftentimes evolve. They change over time. So how did this holiday of staying at home and praying turn into a holiday of pleasure? Well, let's go to 1924. We've got the first Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So on top of this float is what we see a guy dressed up like Santa Claus. This was the intermingling of the Christmas ritual with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving would suddenly become this race to go shopping for Christmas. This idea of generating income for retailers, getting people to be more fluid with their cash. Don't sit home, don't live a modest lifestyle, don't save your money, get out there, spend your money, move the economy. That's more recognizable to what we see the Thanksgiving and Black Friday relationship now. Thanksgiving is just the starting line of that holiday shopping season. And throughout the next decade, the 1930s, this would be promoted to be the government. Franklin Delano Roosevelt wanted to move Thanksgiving back 1 week from where Lincoln put it. He wasn't successful, but he wanted 5 weeks of holiday shopping instead of 4 to get more people moving their money, to get more jobs. So this is more recognizable to what we see the Thanksgiving holiday today. Now, the word Black Friday has a kind of confusing connotation. You want to think of it as American English euphemisms. Black Friday, if you think of it in terms of economics, it means you've got your bills paid. If you're in the black, it means you don't owe any money at the end of the month. It means you're actually generating a profit. So for retailers, Black Friday means this is the time where we don't have to lay off workers. This is the time where we can expand. This is the time when our stock prices will be inflated. Black Friday, living in the black. It's the inverse of living in the red. If you're a person who lives paycheck to paycheck, you don't know how you're going to pay your rent and your bills. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, to use that cliche. That's living in the red. So black in this case is, it means you are comfortable for the time being. That is what it means to be in the black. Now, 2020, when I'm recording this video, there's a new association play on the term Black Friday. So that is to support Black-owned businesses. In the year 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic has hit Black-owned businesses particularly hard. And Google partnered with several artists. This is a jingle you might have seen in a music video, and it's called Buy Black Friday. This jingle is written by Wyclef Jean. So Buy Black Friday, that is a push to promote Black-owned businesses the day after Thanksgiving. We'll see over time how long this connotation will be associated with Black Friday. All right, that is the lesson for today. Take a look at Google Classroom and you will see your assignment. Thank you.